summoned her before Parliament.
This commission may be part of some grand scheme to create a register that is defective. I intend to file a motion calling on colleagues to reject the CI.
Tonight, an all-out onslaught in Parliament by the minority to force a rejection of the constitutional instrument empowering the EC to compile a new voters register, with Parliament resuming in less than 24 hours. But we are also hearing from the EC tonight as they prepare to fight off any attempts to abort the constitutional instrument.
Whatever decision the Electoral Commission has taken, the Commission believes that are into the best interest of the country.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Bond Savings and Loans. Your success, our passion, is also brought to you by Gasem Cement, the nation builder. And Vodafone, the future is exciting, ready. Now, Parliament resumes in less than 24 hours, and already the minority in Parliament is serving notice pointing to an all-out onslaught to force a rejection of the constitutional instrument empowering the Electoral Commission to compile a new voters register. Already, the minority leader, Haruna Drisu, has tonight confirmed to Joy News that they will haul the EC chairperson, Jean Mensah, before the House over some alleged procurement issues relating to the compilation of the voters register. Another prominent minority MP, Mahama Yarga, is also set to file a motion to get the constitutional instrument rejected. Listen to the basis of Mr. Yarga's concerns.
It is making people afraid that perhaps this commission may be part of some grand scheme to create a register that is defective. It's defective because there is a clear shortfall in the capacity of the National Identification Authority to ensure that every Ghanaian has a Ghana card before the registration exercise takes place. There's a clear difficulty there. There's also a very clear difficulty when you decide that you will not accept birth certificates from the registry. And at the same time, you will also not accept previous certifications by the Electoral Commission. And yet, ridiculous, you are willing to accept a guarantee by a holder of an ID card, okay, that somebody is a Ghanaian and therefore should be registered.
But that instrument that you cite,
yes,
it's currently counting the numbers, correct?
Yes.
And may become a fully, passed and fledged instrument, correct?
Actually, I intend to file a motion calling on colleagues to reject the CI, to reject it on the grounds that
you stated.
Yes, the grounds that I've stated, that it will really not help in terms of our present constitutional effort to have a clean register and a credible election. Because it's going to set the grounds for what, in my opinion, will emerge as one of the most defective registers.
So that is Mahama Yarga. Well, the minority leader has been speaking to us tonight also ahead of Parliament resumption tomorrow, and he says they have another plan to, hold the EC chairperson before Parliament over concerns they have when it comes to the procurement surrounding the compilation of the new voters register, plus additional concerns that the minority has that they believe must be addressed as the instrument, which is still gathering the days in Parliament once Parliament resumes tomorrow, gets closer to maturity. Listen to Haruna Drisu.
Now, it's regrettable that 8 months into an elections, we are not certain of our electoral role, and we are not certain what credible register will govern the conduct of the election. This period is not for debate as to what a register should be, the EC must prepare itself to take absolute responsibility for any technical and other failures going forward to the 2020 presidential and parliamentary elections. It's significant for me to observe that one of the primary arguments of the chairperson of the Electoral Commission justifying her insistence on a new voter register was her emphasis on facial recognition. Now, the instrument currently before Parliament, which instrument itself have not matured, so there's no governing law yet, save to rely on the existing legislation, which is still good law, does not make any provision for a facial template data.
How is that a problem?
Credibility. She said she was doing this to enhance it for purpose of facial recognition. Now, it's also important for you to recognize that the last time Ghana undertook a major exercise of replacing a voter register was in 2012. Indeed, between the period 24th March to 5th May, 42 days were used for the exercise. What was the voter population of the country at the time? Now you hear a chairperson and her surrogates now announce that they want to do a same exercise with an expanded population at a lesser period. In 2012, 42 days was used for the exercise. You are now talking of 30 days for the same exercise with increased population. That itself is technically problematic. We will summon her before Parliament, as I indicated, because we need to understand some of the procurement she has undertaken. We subject her to value for money test in many of the exercises she has undertaken, and in some areas she is straying into areas she had no mandate granted by the parliamentary, like PPEs. I'm not aware that at the committee level we approve of a budget for purpose of personal protection equipment. At that time, COVID was not anticipated, and therefore budgetary provision could not be made for it.
But now we have COVID, which means that they must make provision for that.
She has not come back to the committee of special budget. I vice chair the committee. Even when you come to the use of primary data, and you don't want to accept a birth certificate, you don't want to accept a voter ID card. The banks today in Ghana accept a voter ID card as a source of identity, and yet you are using a regulation to amend a Parent Act before Parliament.
And they have been explaining
there
the
is
reason.
A conflict of laws.
Indeed,
in there.
And they have been explaining the reason why they cannot accept the current voter register as proof of citizenship, because if they are seeking to clean the voters register as we have it now, and you allow people to come with the old voters register, then you wouldn't have done anything new. That is the argument they are advancing.
She had promised the people of Ghana of enhanced facial recognition. There is no provision for facial template data, how it is to be used and stored, and how it is to be used for the purpose of identification. So,
well, tonight the Electoral Commission has been fighting back ahead of the resumption of Parliament tomorrow, and in anticipation of what might happen as the days begin to count again for that constitutional instrument to mature. We've been speaking to Sylvia. She speaks for the Electoral Commission. You've heard the concerns expressed there by both the minority leader, who says you're going to hold before the House, Jean Mensah, the EC chairperson, and also Mahama Yariga, who's indicated he's going to file a motion for rejection of the CI, and they both talk about the exclusion of the voters register as a basis for identifying you when it comes to registering you onto the new register that the EC is set to compile. Well, we are getting an explanation from the EC why they cannot include the current voters ID that you have in your hands as part of the requirements for registration. They say many people, as have been established, according to the Electoral Commission, acquired the voters register through fraud, and they may actually be holding the voters ID card when they're not supposed to be in possession of same, and that is why they cannot include the register, the voters ID card that you currently hold, as part of the requirements. Listen to the explanations as offered by Silviano, who in essence says that if they include it, it may make the new voters register in itself not credible.
When the Electoral Commission sees that this step that we're going to take will ultimately affect the credibility of an election, there's nothing wrong with, taking another decision. But let me say that whatever decision the Electoral Commission has taken, the Commission believes that are in the best interest of the country. And
for our viewers, can you explain to us why the EC decided not to include the existing voters register as part of the requirement for the upcoming registration? Because the NDC has issued, and that is where they are saying that you are scheming to rig the election for the governing entity. Some of these reasons.
We are not scheming because, let me tell you, you are talking about the ID card.
Right,
the existing voter ID. That's right. What we should be talking about.
Sure.
Now, you have, there's a perception, or there's a school of thought that some people, are having ID cards and some way somehow they were able to register because they said they were Ghanaians. Okay. Now we want to clean the voters register. It's been there for some time now. You need to clean the voters register thoroughly, and there is a need to make sure that you do not migrate the kind of problems, in the old register onto the new system.
But that wasn't the earlier position of the Electoral Commission, and that has been the argument of the political parties opposing this decision.
You see,
that earlier you told them that you were going to include the voters register, the existing voters ID card, as part of the requirement for the new registration.
Let me say that whatever happened at the initial stages was not cast in stone and iron. It was dialogue, purely dialogue, and that's the reason we keep on inviting the political parties, to come over, check that if there is any suggestion, they will put it up. But that doesn't mean that the Electoral Commission will take all the suggestions. And let me emphasize here and now that the role of IPAC is purely advisory. Said that if the Electoral Commission deems it fit to move in a certain direction and in consonance with the law, so be it. And that's exactly what we are doing.
But the EC communicates to the political parties after realizing that perhaps the existing voters ID card, if it becomes part of the requirement for the upcoming registration exercise, could affect the credibility of the electoral role?
Decisions. The political parties. The political parties at the last IPAC meeting were informed that they talked about the fact that there's a CI before Parliament, and these are the details. We did communicate with the political parties.
Can you produce minutes of this meeting for the purposes of perhaps transparency and accountability?
There are procedures. If the Commission so decides to do that, so be it. So we can make progress.
Well, just this past weekend, MP for Futu Alexander Fenyo-Markin called out the NDC members of Parliament, especially those on the Subsidiary Legislation Committee who worked and approved the constitutional instrument. At least that's what he claimed, that he had worked and approved the constitutional instrument, currently set to mature after 21 days. He didn't quite seem to understand why the U-turn in criticizing a legislation that they had worked on. Listen.
The CI was laid. Before it was laid, a committee of Parliament worked on it. That committee is headed by an NDC MP. When it comes to the subsidiary legislation, it is the NDC that chairs that committee. So I do not think that for a moment the NDC is suggesting that its MPs are sleeping in Parliament. I do not think that the NDC is suggesting that the concerns they are raising today are concerns that they pushed through in Parliament and it was overlooked, and that they are using another avenue to raise same concerns, or that their MPs were sleeping. In the list, I think it's an afterthought. You see, the committee brought its report, and the report was unanimous, and the CI has been laid in accordance with law. Look, if you know you are going to lose an election, be mature enough as a political party and accept the verdict.
Well, thankfully, I've just been joined on the line by the chairperson of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee in Parliament, Dr. Dominic Iyine, who also is a former Deputy Attorney General, who joins us on the telephone line right now. Thank you, Mr. Iyine, for your time here on Top Story. So, is it true that you sat on this, approved it, recommended this approval, and now you're complaining?
Evans, I found that really astonishing that my honorable colleague Afeni Markin will make such allegations without any shred of evidence whatsoever. The reason is simply because it was through the vigilance of the NDC minority that the Electoral Commission had to withdraw the instrument on 2 occasions. The first time, it was brought and laid by the majority leader. We convened a meeting of the committee, and the NDC minority raised a number of critical issues, defects that were detected on the face of the instrument. And the majority leader got convinced that those deficiencies would have created problems for the instrument. So it was withdrawn. The Electoral Commission brought a second instrument. We were not consulted as a committee. The instrument was laid, and again, it was the vigilance of the minority by scrutinizing the instrument and raising critical questions again that led to the second withdrawal. And the MPP majority members would always agree that objectively those deficiencies that were pointed out as being, patent on the face of the instrument, were actually, deficiencies that could have created problems. And that is how come that on 2 occasions we got them to withdraw the instrument. Now, there is no report that has been laid. So, in fact, Afeni Markin misled Ghanaians on your program, on the News 5 program, when he said that the report has been laid. In fact, the draft report is on my desk now, and I am reviewing that draft report for purposes of laying it on the floor of Parliament for discussion. And before I lay the report, we are going to convene a meeting of the committee, to approve the report, whether by majority or by unanimity. So it is not true that the report has been laid and that we were caught napping, during the course of the deliberations when the instrument came before the committee.
I'm delighted to say that I've just been joined also by your colleague, ranking member from the NPP side, Honorable Yao Bobby-Asama, is the MP for Adentant constituency.
Fantastic.
Mr. Bobby-Asama, so what's your own knowledge of where the process is currently with this particular CI?
The third CI, 126, has been laid. The committee is going to meet, consider the report, and it's on the floor of the House. I don't see where the brouhaha is.
Oh, you said a CI has already been laid. Clarify that.
Yes, the instrument has been laid. That's normal. The instrument has been laid.
As in, it's counting the days.
Referred to the committee, not the report. There are 2 things. You're talking about an instrument and a report. The instrument has been laid and referred to the committee for its report to plenary. The committee consider the instrument, finalize its report, and present it to plenary.
So the report is what is still in the works, which hasn't been put before the plenary yet for consideration.
What?
The report. That is the
But
one.
It's not before the plenary yet.
It's not, because you're still working on it. Okay. I mean, so as we stand tonight, how many days are we with the instrument since it's been laid?
The table office can give you that count.
Okay. We just heard the chairman say that when it comes to the scrutiny that the particular instrument has received from your committee, they've managed to raise substantial concerns that has led to 2 subsequent withdrawals and then has been laid again. And the main concern that I've heard tonight also from the minority leader, from Mama Ayariga, is the exclusion of the voters register. What's your own response to that?
Mama Ayariga said what?
The concern about the exclusion of the voters register as a document for identification.
The EC has justified why it did that, and it will be considered as part of the report. Okay. I am not going to discuss the report until the report is sorted out within committee. Committees work in a bipartisan manner. I am not going to be in a position to debate the report of the committee when we haven't yet concluded and laid it before the plenary.
Do you at least give your colleagues from the other side the credit of the scrutiny that they've brought to bear, that Dominic articulates as having been the basis for the result?
I was in the second meeting, which withdrew the 125 and opted to lay another one. I'm the ranking member. If we are going to begin looking for scalps, and then we are going to begin dividing the work of Parliament, we work as a committee. We respect each other as a committee. And I think this is not the kind of instrument that I'll be willing to split hairs about. This one said this one said that. I don't think it will serve the committee going forward. I'm not prepared to go down that route.
Dominic, substantively, though, you've heard the concerns that has been expressed, articulated by your own leader on this show a few minutes back. Mama Yaga did the same. In fact, he says he wants to bring a motion for its rejection. Your leader says to us tonight that he's also getting the EC's chairperson to answer questions, and it fundamentally has to do with, one, the exclusion of the voters register as a basis for recognition, ID for the registration. 2, the exclusion of the birth certificate also. Are these concerns that you also hold?
Well, Evans, I want to first of all acknowledge one thing that my ranking member has said. We work as a committee, and so it is not about what the minority said and what the majority did not say or also said. But I was just trying to answer directly to what Afenyo Makin alleged, that we, the minority members, were sleeping. And I just wanted to underscore the fact that our eyes were wide open during the deliberations, and that members of the minority were vociferous in raising issues about the deficiencies of the instrument. And that's how come that, by consensus, the instrument was withdrawn twice. All right. Now, with respect to the issue of the non-acceptance of the voters' ID card as a source document, in fact, it is one of the critical issues that the committee is considering. And as chairman of the committee, I would not want to, preempt, the observations of the committee on air, even before I have, consulted my ranking member, and then even before the members of the committee, have seen the draft report and okayed it. So I would reserve my comments on the day we lay the report. If you want to grant me an interview, I will make known my position on the issue of the voter ID card as a source document.
How many days more before the CI matures? Do we know?
Well, I think at the last count we had done about 8 or 9 days. So I'm not too sure of the exact date. I need to cross-check with the clerk of the committee. But we've done. I don't think we've not done up to 10 days. It was I think about 8 or 9 days. I'm not too sure.
It appears to me, though, having heard the minority leader speak, that the minority side has a position which says in essence that this CI cannot pass, at least in the form in which it currently stands and gathering the days.
Yeah, of course, the minority side has a position, all right, and I believe that the minority leader would have articulated that position to you.
Yes.
as chairman of the committee, I don't think that it will be right for me, be dividing the ranks of the committee even before we've met on the report. So I would want to reserve my comments, respect the views of the majority side, and then be sure that the report we are taking to, plenary is a report that the committee has attained either consensus or by a majority of the votes of the committee members. We have said either we are upholding the instrument or we are asking the House, to vote to withdraw the instrument. So I don't want to prejudge matters, Evans.
When do you hope
members of my committee?
When do you hope to lay the report, finalize and lay before the plenary?
Of course, as I said, it's on my desk now. I'm working on it. Parliament resumes tomorrow. Most likely before the end of the week, the report will have been ready and would have, called for a meeting to consider the report.
Gentlemen, thank you very much. That is the chairperson of the Subsidiary Legislation Committee, Dr. Dominica Yine. Earlier you had Yababia Sama, who is a ranking member on that same committee there. I want to go to my colleague, Joseph Gakpo, who parliamentary correspondent. Has been following this closely for us and watching this CI as it gathers the days in Parliament towards maturity. And we're also learning a bit more about the parliamentary business when it resumes tomorrow. There's a lot of many controversial issues that Parliament is set to be dealing with, and Joseph joins me on the telephone line with more on this. Joseph, have you checked with the clerk's office, and do we know exactly how many more days before this controversial CI matures?
I've been doing my own count of it. You recall that it was laid for the first time, withdrawn, relayed, and relayed again. For my count, it's done 7 days in Parliament, meaning there are about 14 more sitting days that's supposed to run. And what that means is that if Parliament resumes sitting tomorrow, taking out Saturdays and Sundays, it's likely that if nothing else happens and the current one is not withdrawn, it will take up to another month in order for it to mature, which will take us to sometime the middle of June. So for my own count, it's done 7 days in terms of the number of days that the latest late document has actually been in Parliament.
Okay, and that is a number of days to watch as the committee's report comes for the plenary to examine. But we're also learning a bit more about what Parliament will be doing when they resume tomorrow. Some very controversial business there that the Parliament is set to consider.
A number of them, the Public Universities Bill 2020, which is before the Education Committee.
That is a hotly contested one, very hotly contested bill.
Exactly, that is something that the House will be looking at. Another one having to do with the Legal Profession Amendment Bill 2018. That's also having to do with legal education in the country. It's been in the works for quite a while now. The House will be looking at it. The Interstate Succession Bill 2018, which again has been a topical issue for quite a while, several years now. It's one of the things the House will be looking at. And then additionally, the House will be considering the Exemptions Bill 2019, which has to do with which institutions should get exemptions and all of that. But then additionally, the Education Regulatory Bodies Bill 2019, and another hotly contested one, the Pre-Tertiary Education Bill 2019 as well, which a number of the associations at the level of teacher unions have rejected, would also be considered. But in the notice that Parliament issued, even as the House resumes sitting tomorrow, an emphatic statement was made that Parliament would like to assure members and citizens that the House will observe the social distancing protocol during this particular meeting. And some MPs, including Kobna Mintakando, have called for the decision to recall the House to be withdrawn in the light of the concerns having to do with COVID-19. And our Parliament is assuring that necessary social distancing measures will be put in place even as MPs resume sitting tomorrow.
That's very curious because the chamber itself has a set number of seats and they're very close to each other. Except maybe they've now re-engineered the entire space, removed the chairs, and we don't know. We'll see how this pans. I don't know whether you've been to the House already to see what this will look like.
From what we gather, not exactly a form of re-engineering when it comes to the sitting and all, but among the considerations is that the public gallery, which currently is closed because no members of the public are allowed into the chamber, even as the House sits right from when COVID-19 became an issue, will be a space that the leaders are considering sending some members of parliament to go sit, so that then right on the floor itself there is enough space for everybody.
Joseph, thank you very much. A lot to watch and anticipate ahead of Parliament resumption.